I had an idea, and even if we don't end up doing it, I want to capture it. So, Kyle, imagine you press play on the record. This is the first thing you hear. Four. So when I was 16 years old, my mom got me, as I think a birthday present, tickets to CMA Fest in Nashville. I'd never been. At the time where the Titans played was called LP Field. And so me and a friend came here. We went to CMA Fest, and I remember seeing Dierks Bentley, and he came out on the thrust, like the end of the stage, and he sat down, him and a guitar, and played Come a Little Closer. It was like the first time he'd ever debuted the song. And I remember thinking then, like, I don't know what that guy's doing, but that's what I want to do.
Just thought I'd call and check on you and Dad. Hey, Mama.
It's kind of like, I tell people it's like being an astronaut sometimes, because you know that an astronaut puts on a spacesuit and gets in a rocket and goes to the moon, but you don't really know what a 9-to-5 is for a guy that works at NASA, or at least I don't. So when I tell people I'm a songwriter, they're like, what in the hell is that? Well, so over these years, you know, I've been writing these songs, and publishing companies, so, you know, I've been pitching these songs, and some have gotten cut and most haven't. But somewhere along the way, I was like, you know, a lot of my favorite songwriting heroes, inspirations, have done their own records as like kind of a passion project. And years ago, I started tossing this around.
Yeah, it's got pain in there, you know?
I do think the next line is, I got songs to sing. I got songs to sing.
So with the down on
I didn't hate the... So COVID happens in 2020. We come off the road. I start getting back into bass fishing, and I start writing songs pretty heavy. And I met this guy named David Mescon, who goes by Messy. And he was introduced to me as a track guy by a publisher here in town.
And he hit me up and was like, yo, I got you this right with this guy, Rob Williford. And I'm like, I don't know who that is, but okay, whatever. So Rob came over expecting me to just be some normal fuckboy, which, you know, I'm like an elevated fuckboy. And the first time we met, I think it was just like, man, I mean, vibe I got was he's like, I like this guy because he's different than any of these other assholes. And I was like, I like this guy because he doesn't give a fuck, which was great because this was like mid-pandemic, so I was kind of stuck here. So I was doing a lot of country writing, and there's so formulaic in the way not just people would write, but it's just in the way people would act. And like, I am not that. You know, I've been independent forever. I do all these different things than people usually do. So it was like at first sight.
I don't know. I was kind of getting burnt out on doing the songwriter thing, and I met this guy, and he's much more than a track guy. He's a phenomenal musician, one of the best I've ever heard at playing bass. I mean, his bass playing is disgusting. And he and I started writing songs with, you know, new artists here in town and songwriters. And anyways, he and I kind of started vibing on a certain sound that I was really digging, and he seemed to be into it. And the more I thought about it, I was like, well, maybe he's the guy to do the record with.
Yeah, we started making music. We wrote a song, then we wrote another, and wrote probably 20 or 30. And I mean, it was like 2 years ago. And at some point during that, Rob was like, man, you know, I want to make a record, and I want you to produce it.
It's spinning, heart pounding, whole world turning upside down. And I know I sound crazy, but girl, you'd be crazy too if you loved you like I
do. In June of 2021, we had played our first show back in, I believe, 14 months. And we played the Carolina Country Music Fest in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. When we got back to Nashville, and I got off the bus to get in my truck. When I cranked up that same Tacoma, it was like the top of this Matchbox 20 song bent, which is maybe my favorite song of all time, which is an impossible question for a guy like me to answer. There's a guitar lick at the top of the song, and as I cranked the truck, the guitar lick was like, bow down, ba-da-ba-da-da-da-da, bow down. And I'd never noticed this bend thing happening in the intro, and I'm like, wow, that's really neat. And I got home and I listened to it again, and it was like a little light bulb went off. I was like, wait, the guy that played that, Kyle Cook, Matchbox 20, by the way, is my favorite band of all time. I should probably throw that in sooner. But I was like, I think he lives in Nashville. Well, I hit up Ben Vaughn, who runs Warner Chapel, who I have a good relationship with and have for a long time. And I said, hey man, let's grab lunch and catch up. And we did. And I asked him, I was like, do you know a guy named Kyle Cook? And he said, actually, I signed Kyle Cook to his first publishing deal. Through a weird series of events, it turns out we had the same lawyer. We ended up grabbing lunch. And after lunch, we went to a studio, and then we kind of started jamming.
And we sat down, and we just got to know each other first. And then, yeah, he sent me some early demos of stuff. And, yeah, I mean, I was not surprised that they were great songs, you know. But I knew that there was something that I could bring a pop rock element that I guess I'm known for doing, you know, in the band, to the type of melodies and the type of songs that he was writing. I immediately understood. I think that's when the synergy happened, and it made a lot of sense to me what he was going for, because he actually wanted to intentionally bring in some of that 90s rock sound to what, you know, on their own are just great country songs on acoustic guitar, right?
He had, through Warner, found Kyle, because he's like, Matchbox is my favorite band. I want that guy, and I want you to be a part of it. And I think his vision was, okay, I'm Rob, I'm fairly country, but Matchbox is my favorite thing, and then I love all this contemporary stuff and hip hop music, so he just kind of married all three together.
But he wanted to intentionally have this kind of 90s rock theme, which after I heard the material, I totally got what he was saying, and right then I was like, all right, I'm your guy. This is it. Let's do this.
And I was just like, hey man, random question, but would you want to produce a record with me? And he's like, absolutely. There was no like, you know, I was all paranoid about, I'm not an artist, I don't have a record deal, like, I don't even consider myself a singer, really. I just like to write songs, and I don't know, it was a pure thing for fun. I'm like, this guy's never gonna do this, and he was way in from the get-go.
It's tough to say. We'd have to hear it with because there's so much moving with this shit.
I'm gonna go ahead and try it with just the acoustic playing it.
Yeah.
It might be cool. It might be kind of punk to it. It just, I don't know. I'm big, like, I don't care who makes the guitar or what it looks like or what, I mean, I do care what it looks like, but if I sit down and it inspires me to write something, then I'm all about it. And this one's just like every time I touch it. Well, he has a connection with a guy named Spencer Coates in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, who runs a studio called Fame. Very historic studio. We kind of started talking about this project. He's like, well, we should go down and do it with my boy at Fame. And I'm like, this is a great idea.
I'd been going down to Fame for like a year. I got to be really good boys with Spencer, the studio manager. And I was like, let's do this at Fame. Like, we're doing it different anyway. Let's not go to Ocean Way or Blackbird or whatever. So he was like, I'm so down, I'm so in.
Nothing against Music Row. You know, I love Music Row, I love Nashville. It's the home of country music, but I wanted to get the hell out of Dodge and breathe a little bit and make a record on my own terms, my own money, nobody telling me what I can and can't do, and have fun again, you know? Remember why it was that I wanted to move here to begin with.
I was kind of ready for more of like a Music Row kind of, you know, we'll go get a bunch of great Music Row musicians, which is, you know, everyone does, and we'll find a good studio, you know, wherever, and we'll cut it. He had a very specific sonic sound, you know, sonic imprint that he wanted on this album, which I thought was impressive. So we started talking about Fame. I was like, well, I've always wanted to go to Fame. You know, I love destination albums. Nashville's such an easy town to make an album in. You know, it's like a lot of times people just, you know, they want to stay close to home. So that was kind of interesting. The fact that we were going to do this destination thing, I was like, oh, okay, that's cool, man. There's going to be this camaraderie, and we're gonna live in an Airbnb, and we're going to go to the, you know, it's a little bit that fish out of water thing. Kind of forces a certain creativity that maybe you don't get when you just, all right, the session's over, everyone goes home, and they're home in 20 minutes.
we carved out 5 days to get down to Fame, and it was life changing. I mean, it was the most fun I've maybe ever had to go down there and for a week make music with these guys.
I've been in a lot of studios, really nice studios in LA and here and whatever, and like Fame isn't the nicest studio, but there's something in the water. You know, it's just like when you're in there, you're like, man, 500 gold records were made in 5 years here, and there's got to be a reason, and you feel it. And then on top of that, just everyone was cool.
And then you can like go over it.
It's gonna open up so much.
Vibe.
I almost don't want to sing till I hear the word.
Yeah, I agree with that. Let's build this
And-
up. I'm
and
just
like-
saying those 2 guitar parts are
Yeah,
the
go do that.
counterpoint. Let's get those done.
Absolutely. So it's there.
And then we'll be cool. All right, let's try it.
1, 2.
One of the cool synchronicity things that happened is we got Donnie Marple, who was the drummer for Lee Brice. We got Donnie Marple to go down and play with us.
You know, I asked Rob who he wanted to play drums on, and he's like, man, I don't know. And I was like, the only guy I could think of is Donnie Marple. And he's like, that's the only guy I would want.
We used to play a lot of the same bars and clubs that Donnie's old band, Simplified, used to play. So like I've known of Donnie Marple for, I mean, almost 20 years now, but for the first time I ever met him was at Fame. And the craziest thing, man, me, Donnie, and David, you got to think, I'm coming from Mount Juliet, David's coming from East Nashville. Like, it's about a 2.5 hour and some change drive. We all pulled in to Fame at the exact same time. It's like 3 cars pulled in, parked right beside each other. And I've never met Donnie. And I just got out and was like, hey man, I'm Rob. So like from the get-go of meeting him and going into the studio that way, it was like, all right, well this is gonna be special. And so, yeah, I would say the whole thing was pretty wild. Dude, he's got a little slapperoo in him.
You ready?
He's born with it.
Slapping.
Slapperooski.
It could be like Rob Williford has Bradley Cooper come in and play congas on his record. I wrote Like I Do with Billy Montana and Adam Wood. And I remember when we wrote it that day, it was like I had this riff that I thought was Third Eye Blind. It was pop punk in my brain, and that's, you know, why I wanted to do a record with Kyle is because I'm a big 90s rock fan. And I really love the song. Adam demoed it and killed it. And when I met Kyle, that was really the first song I played for him. And he was like, it sounds hitty, it sounds commercial, and I'm like, yeah, it just reminds me of all the nostalgic pop punk things of 2000s rock and 90s rock that I love. And so he came over to the house, he wrote this cool little lick at the top of this, like, da 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 na 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 ba da da ba da.
We're gonna go to the 1.
This is the intro, I'm saying.
Oh,
And then Donnie.
great.
Like I do, baby, if you only knew, oh, how it feels just to be me for one night.
I think it
I
sounds
think it
great.
sounds great for
It
you.
might be cool. The bass tuned down will give those big.
The cool thing about, like, I play guitar, but I don't consider myself a guitar player. But I love using the guitar to, like, support the song. And so on that one, man, it's like plugged into the amp, just turned it up obnoxiously loud and played power chords. And so it's like, it's the song on the record that is pop rock. It is punk rock. It's a little bit, but it's a, you know, southern accented country guy singing the, I don't know, it's a unique song, and I think it's catchy, and I think it's a cool way to kick off the record.
Like Donnie do. It's a new title, bro.
I do like that better.
I mean,
Yep.
Hey mama,
Hey Mama is probably, in my opinion, if people ask me my favorite, it may be because it was one of the first songs I wrote when I moved back to town, living out of a truck sort of thing. And I wrote it with a guy named Joe Costa. Him and his wife Martina are in a duo called Joe and Martina. And we wrote it at his house. He was living in Hendersonville, and he had this lick that was very like bluegrass, folk, Appalachian. And I'm like, wow, I love that lick thing. And we wrote it pretty quick, if I remember correctly. And dude, that song, I mean, now it's 8, 9 years old, and it still has just kind of followed me around. That was really before I knew that I wanted to write songs, but the craft of writing I hadn't really studied that much. And so it was just an honest song. And it's really personal to me, and I love my mom, and I hope it makes people cry. We're in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, Studio Fame. We're in Studio B, and this is the Glockenspiegel. You're about to see rarely seen footage of a man doing a one take. Now that's studio lingo for all you no talent dickwads. That means I'm just gonna nail it. And I'm thinking about maybe making Mama second. Making Like I Do and then Hey Mama.
That's
I mean,
cool.
that would be a hell of a way to open
That might
it.
be. I feel like
That's
I
a
might like
strong,
that better.
yeah, a strong way to open it.
Yeah, and then Sweet Spot kind of lifts it back up tempo wise, and then into
You're right, yeah. And also the third slide's a cool up tempo song.
yeah.
Song's special.
That might be one of the most proud moments of production for me, right there.
Sweet Spot I wrote 2020 with Wyatt Durrett and Danny Myrick. Really fun writing session. Wyatt and I had started the song one day. I'd gone over to his. He has an apartment here in Midtown, and it's a slick place, man. It's overlooking like the skyline, and of course he's on the pool level with the babes, and it was just a good vibe. And we were out on his balcony writing, and like we started one song, and then he said something, and it was one of those days where we had 2 or 3 ideas going at one time, and we had written the chorus of Sweet Spot, me and him. So that morning in 2020, when we were writing with Danny, I was like, hey, you want to fool around with this Sweet Spot thing? I really dig the vibe of it. And so Danny jumped in, and we wrote it like, it just reminded me of having the bluegrass thing that I wanted. It had like the shuffle beat, and it was fun, and I also put Waffle House in it, so I had to put it on the record kind of thing. But yeah, it's a fun one. There's also frogs in it too that I love.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah.
Because it still has the downs of the tubing.
Yeah,
cool.
I was afraid to be more active because of the vibey nature, but I'm down.
I hear this as some sort of segment that comes in. Check this out. You land on the hook of the second chorus. Do you find that sweet spot? 1, 2, 3, 4. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Heartache happens all the time. I wrote the day after the BMI Awards because I was still drunk from the night before. And I walked into the wrong publishing company, which was embarrassing. And I was writing with Ryan Beaver. And it was me and him, never written with him. We were both kind of struggling from the night before. And we wrote that song. It's the quickest song I've ever written. I'd say like 30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes we wrote that. And again, it's just kind of a song that I've really loved for a long time because I think it's like Jimmy Buffett beach guy, but he's Keith Whitley sad and he's drunk and it's dark. And so I wanted to put something a little emo and dark on the record, and I think it turned out really neat. Right now, plug this beautiful instrument into this pedal board that's in that booth that's connected to the Three Monkeys amp in the other room.
Okay.
There's 57s on it.
Okay.
You ain't really got to touch any of these fucking knobs. Just turn it up, and it's going to be the most orgasmic thing you've ever heard.
Awesome.
All right.
It really sounds like making babies.
This is exciting. But when we got together, we kind of treated it more like we gave it a beach Spanish vibe. Donnie plays congos on it, which is really cool. I don't know how anyone can make the congo sound cool, but that man can. And Kyle did this sick slide part. It's like, it's like this crying kind of, it sounds like a steel guitar thing that's happening, but it's just Kyle on a slide with his SG, I think. And it gave this really haunting vibe to it. Back again, I wrote with David Mescon and a guy that's new in town named David Lee Murphy. I'm just kidding. David Lee Murphy is known for huge hits like Party Crowd and Dust on the Bottle, and has his own merit equally as a songwriter. Shit ton of #1s, and just a guy that, like, you know, I grew up listening to on the radio, and when I came here, he was the guy that I always wanted to write with, and I met him about 1.5 years ago, and I thought it'd be a good fit for this, what we're trying to do, because he has this real cool, it's like this songwriter Tom Petty thing that comes out in his music, and it's kind of what I am trying to do. So we wrote this song with the intention of it being on this record, and it was like, it just had this, I keep going back to the Petty thing, but it had this like big rock guitar on it that I wanted, and man, we might have spent the most time on this song just to try to get it right, but yeah.
That weren't attractive back in the day?
Donnie said he's gonna give it a toast. Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
You're still laying it back. You're just laying it back, that's all I can say.
Dude, you heard it here first. From Donnie Marplewood.
It's hard for me.
Cheers.
Cheers, salute. It's good water they got around here. I don't know what any of these things do. Oh, that means Vox. I think that says, look, I'll show you. This says Lot, Keck, Gran Torino 2, which is Clint Eastwood. Drums. Same thing here, which is, that's confusing for a man. Guitar 2 and guitar 2, and then this is click, and this is bass, kitchen bass. Well, it's just a man and his thoughts in the room. A man, a microphone, and his thoughts. Too Close I wrote with, again, David and Nick Bailey, and we spent a lot of time on it. It was a multi-day write. Finally found a hook, and then went. I like it because it's a really unique song. I always heard it as a rock song. It's this drop D kind of. I always heard it as my Kurt Cobain, Nirvana influence coming out in it, but we added all these layers with. I had my buddy Dustin Nunley, who plays in the band with Luke, come down and play banjo on it, and he did this really cool banjo roll that goes through the whole song, and there's a lick in it that happens that when Dave and I were writing it, it reminded me of this Coldplay vibe, and so again, this whole record just has these little fingerprints of influences of records that I grew up listening to that shaped. Because like I didn't come from a family musical background. I didn't, kind of self-taught guitar, didn't know how to sing or anything, but it was just kind of shaped by all these different records. And so to go and it's all over every song, but that's one to where there's just a lot of different. It also has an outro that gets jam bandy at the end that, you know, tickles me to go into like a Dave Matthews type OAR sort of situation and jam. So yeah, that was a fun one.
It's been a while.
I wrote with Steve Bogard, and Steve Bogard, legendary songwriter here in town, and we wrote it because I had this little songwriter-esque droney thing on guitar, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool to write a song that's like, you know, if I was a boat, I'd be on the ocean. If I was a plane, I'd be in the sky, you know, but if I was you, I'd be over me too, kind of thing. But I ain't. And I kept laying it back on I ain't. When I played Kyle the songs that I wanted on this record, I said, you got to be brutally honest with me about why you like it or why you don't. And this song I played for him, and he's like, kind of boring. I'm like, no. And it kind of like put a good chip on my shoulder, and so we were up in my studio, and I was like, well, let's make it not boring. And I was like, what if we make it a little Motown? And I can't play piano, but like through the help of David, we hammered out some chords that were like bouncy, and it gave the song a completely different treatment, arrangement-wise, but it turned it into this whimsical character that like is a drunk guy saying to a girl like, I'm not over you, but fuck it. It's just it's fun, and there's a lot of cool little stuff that happened in that song or organically, like Kyle playing the piano part at the beginning actually out of key. It's funny, and I don't know, it's that's just one that makes me smile, and I'm glad we got it on the record.
But I think on that part, you do the hits with it, just the clean, and then the disco at the very end. You know what I'm saying? Because that was the bridgy part that we're doing, like the hits. So I think everyone hits like boom, and he's playing through. You know? And here you start discoing, maybe.
Claps. Like claps make it feel kind
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
And the timbre, all those things.
Look Who's Talking I wrote with Sam Banks and Joe Hutzel. He has a brother named Brad, and I was making sure, again, names are just not my thing. I suck at remembering things as it is. I wrote with Sam Banks and Joe Hutzel, and it was just like, it's just a love song. I'm a big, like I said, I love Keith Whitley, I love Randy Travis, I love old country love songs that had a hook that maintained a guy would want to sing it and the girl would want to hear it, sort of thing. And so that song is country, but it's also got a little bit of pop sensibility in the love song element. It also has this synth that underneath it is very 2000s rock, like Owl City kind of soundscape going on underneath it that kind of makes me smile. Fool Me Again I wrote with actually the guy that just walked in here, Cameron Marlowe, North Carolina boy, and the Warren brothers, Brett and Brad Warren, who are very important in my musical career and journey, songwriters, but also really close friends of mine. And man, this is one of my favorite. Cameron had come over to my house late one night to smoke weed. I think we can say that. I can say that is my thing. And I was playing this thing in 3, a big open acoustic thing in G, and he was kind of mumbling through some stuff, and it sounded like he landed on Fool Me Again, and I was like, well, that's awesome. We took that with the Warren Brothers and wrote it, and it's 3/4. It's got this Mayer lick in it, esque thing that Kyle nails on Strat, and it's just sad. I wanted a sad country song on the record, and that's it. Granny's Got a Garden, also written with Cam Marlowe and the Warren Brothers. That was the first song we wrote together with the Warrens, and this one I'm glad to get to tell this story because it may be the best story of any song on the record. Cameron is from North Carolina, Kannapolis, where my father is from actually. And Cameron has since moved to Nashville and gotten a big old record deal at Columbia Records, which is where Lucas is at. And the serendipity of it all is awesome, but Cam and I were at Tin Roof off de Munbrian. He was in a booth behind me with some people, and I overheard him say something to the effect of, well, my grandma keeps her plants in the closet. And I kind of like just turned around and said, I'm sorry to interrupt your conversation. Did you say that your grandmother keeps her pot plants in the closet? And he's like, yeah, my granny's a stoner. And we happened to be writing that next day. And I said, dude, we have to write about that. And so what's really cool about this song, the way I kind of interpret it, like the first verse is his grandmother and the second verse is mine. And I mean, I don't know, just a granny that is a pothead, like that's awesome. Just, you know, it's one of those cool things. It's a little snapshot of, you know, got Sun Drop in it, which is made where I'm from. And I don't know, just again, that one has a lot of, there's a bridge in that song when we went to record it that it fell out in the studio. That bridge that happens, it's like this Zeppelin-esque thing. That's Kyle Cook. That's Kyle and David, like in the moment, we're like, what should we do for a bridge? And one of them, you know, came up with that line, and it's a really cool moment in the song. And so Cameron's actually getting ready to lay down some background vocals on it, I think. But I'm hoping people will get the joke and laugh.
I just forgot about it. I would sing it all, and if we want to pull it, we'll pull it. I'm just trying to, as I hear it. You hear this yet?
Yeah.
Get that pump loader with. You can find it, is what you're telling me, right?
It's there. It's gonna be on one of the takes.
Because you got my blood pressure up. That was one of the best. We captured a beer crack, which happened at Fame, and Kyle tried to pull a fast one and take it out of the mix. Well, when I was in here cutting the vocal, it dawned upon me that crack and beer wasn't in there. So I had to, you know, the pressure was then on me in the moment to recreate this really once in a lifetime moment that had happened down at Fame.
You killed it.
And
you killed it. You came in one take, smashed it.
Just, it was really one of the most epic beer openings I, in 35 years, have ever.
You heard the fizz.
The snap, crackle, and the pop.
Oh, bro.
Everything.
Oh, dude.
But there's something about around him. Granny's got a garden.
Sounds like a set.
So let's listen. We're gonna have to listen to.
Learn I wrote with Luke Combs and Lori McKenna. Lori is one of my songwriting heroes, huge influence. Luke and I were on the road in New Mexico, and we Zoomed her from a hotel room on the road, and we wrote that kind of for this project. And it ended up being, there's no real chorus in it.
There's a part of me that feels that we've reached the day and time that after 3 days of it, that we've gone into what's like a delusional hour, which is great for the music, bad for if you're trying to prove to any other human being that you are of sound mind. But we're gonna see what's gonna happen.
It's the last song on the record, and I know I'm getting a call. It's Luke. Imagine that timing. I'm gonna take this while we're on here. This is my life. It's just bad timing. Lucas, we're up here at the Sound Emporium.
All right. Well, I'm heading that way.
All right. How long you reckon? 20 minutes?
Let me see. I'll type it in. I was just setting it. Because I am 15 minutes.
All right, buddy. We'll see you here.
All right. See you, man.
All right, bye. Yeah, I wrote it with that guy and Lori McKenna, and I had the "You're Gonna Learn."
Him like, won't be the last or the first. Like, let him do the thing he did at the end of chorus 1, and you or me or somebody come back and we'll do that layered note along with it.
A whole nother melody
So it's
going
like,
with it. It's sick.
Why we lose old trucks and good dogs. Big games on bad cars.
Fire.
Won't be the last.
It's like,
yeah, bro.
it's not a harmony per se. Yeah.
re-listen to the
It's,
melody. What we just.
It's an act of love that he's doing it, and I'm not good at it either, and he pays me to do it. It's again nostalgic tune, kind of talking about. I had the line loop, swoop, and pull, and Luke just real kind of nonchalantly, he's like, loop, swoop, and pull, don't run by the pool, and I'm like, damn it, that's a great line. It's probably my favorite line in the song, and that guy got it. Dang it. But man, I just thought it was a really special song. Wasn't gonna put it on the record, and my mom called me one day and was like, "Did you record Learn?" I'm like, "Nah, we didn't. We're not gonna do it." She's like, "It has to go on the record." So it's on there, and I'm glad we did it. It's the last thing we did, and so that's the record, baby. Called Wildcard. I don't even think the guys know that's the name of it, but yeah, Wildcard.